Hi guys, in today's video we're going to be painting a Dungeons and Dragons Frost Giant from start to finish. But first of all I want to say a huge thank you to my YouTube channel sponsors Goblin Gaming, who sent me the miniature 8 for review. If you check the description box down below you'll find a direct link to their web store, and every time you purchase something using that link it greatly helps my YouTube channel, so please use the link in the description box below. I also want to thank the Army Painter for sending me out the Dungeons and Dragon paints that you'll see me using throughout this video. The Army Painter and Goblin Gaming and myself, OPN, has teamed up together to give away a Dungeons and Dragons monster paint set absolutely free to one lucky winner. You'll find out the details on how you could possibly win this paint set by tuning in tomorrow, and I'll upload a video on how you could possibly win the paint set. Okay guys, this is going to be a long video as always, so go grab yourselves a nice hot drink or maybe an ice cold beer and we'll get started with the tutorial. Here you can see that we have the two Army Painter paint sets from Dungeons and Dragons. We have the Monster paint set and we also have the Adventure paint set. These are the paints that we will be using in today's tutorial. We're going to start off by using the Dungeons and Dragons paint colour Bugbear Brown. I've thinned this down with a little water just to make sure it flows a little more nicely onto the miniature, and also it's not going to obscure any of that lovely detail that we see on the Frost Giant. As you can see, I'm using quite a large brush because this is a very large miniature. I'm saving a lot of time by using a larger brush as it's able to hold a lot more paint and cover a larger area at the same time. And here's what the miniature looks like when I've painted all of the Bugbear Brown on all of the areas that were due to be painted in that colour. Now we're going to start using Dungeons and Dragons colour Cambion Crimson. Again, I've thinned it down with a little water and we're using that large brush. It's actually a size 3 brush and it's able to cover large areas fairly effortlessly. And here we can see all of the areas on the miniature that's been painted using the Cambion Crimson. Now we're going to use Dungeons and Dragons paint Mithril Silver. Trying to be a little bit more careful now to make sure that we don't go over any of the brown or red areas that we painted previously. And here's what the miniature looks like with all the areas painted with Mithril Silver. Now we're going to paint some of the areas on the miniature using Dungeon Stone, like the trousers and the beard. Dungeons and Dragons skeleton bone is going to be painted onto the bone skull that's on the top of the frost giant's head. Dungeons and Dragons paint gelatinous blue is going to be painted onto all of the fur areas of the frost giant. Dungeons and Dragons Underdark Indigo is going to be painted on all of the flesh areas of the frost giant. I've switched to a slightly smaller brush here. This is a size 2 and I'm being a little bit more careful just to make sure that I don't get any of the paint on any of the other areas of the miniature. All of the techniques that you see so far, guys, have been straightforward base coating. What that means is we're getting a nice even coverage on all of the layers of paint that we place down. If you don't get a smooth layer in the first pass of the colour, then we come back in and we paint it again. Dungeons and Dragons Owlbear Brown is going to be painted onto the base of the miniature. The miniature is going to start to come alive now, guys, as we add a shade wash to the miniature. If you're new to painting miniatures, a wash gathers in all of the recesses of the miniature and enables it to create shadows which will naturally make the miniature look much better. I'm using a large brush again here and I'm using the brown wash to cover all of the brown areas of the miniature. Dungeons and Dragons Shadow Wash is going to be painted on all of the areas that are painted in metallics. Flesh Wash is going to be painted on all of the areas that were painted in bone colour. I also wash all of the areas that were painted in gelatinous blue, so all the fur areas of the miniature, but I heavily water down the Flesh Wash as it's just too strong to paint the fur. So I thin it down 1:1 with water on all of the areas that were washed over the fur. Dungeons and Dragons Otia Brown is going to be painted onto all of the areas that were painted in brown. But it's important to note we're using a special technique here, guys, called dry brushing. It's a very old technique, but it's very, very good. What you do is you get a dry brush. It's a specific type of brush that the army painter do sell, and what you can do is remove most of the paint on some paper towel, and then you lightly brush over all of the details of the model. And here you can see I'm just concentrating on all of the leather areas of the miniature, and it will highlight all of the details for you. It's very, very simple to do this technique, but it's really important that you do remove most of the paint on some paper towel before you actually apply it to the miniature. Dungeons and Dragons Rust Monster is going to be dry brushed on all of the areas that were painted in red. Lawful White is going to be dry brushed on all of the areas of fur. It's also going to be painted onto the nails of the Frost Giant and also on the eyes. Shadow Wash was washed onto all of the areas of flesh. Now we're going to go over all of the areas apart from the recesses with Indigo Dark, and as you can see, it's going to really tidy up some of the areas that were left stained behind from adding the wash. Silver Dragon is going to be dry brushed on all of the areas that were painted in Mithril Silver. And here you can see the finished Frost Giant. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, guys, and if you did, please hit the like button. I want to say a huge thank you once again to my YouTube channels, Goblin Gaming. Please don't forget to check the description box down below. I also want to thank the Army Painter as well for sending me the Dungeons and Dragons paints for review. And lastly, guys, don't forget to stay tuned to my channel tomorrow, where I'll be announcing how you can possibly win that Army Painter Dungeons and Dragons monster paint set. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.